Hi internet. So today I wanted to make a video from an idea I got from Ariel, I want to say Ariel Bissett, but I don't know. I'm going to put her channel down in the description with the video. Her video prompted me to make this one. Her question was, is fanfiction actual literature or should it be recognised as literature? Now, I come from a different background to her. I had been reading fanfiction since I was about 14 and I kind of got out of it when I was about 19. So there's a few years there. I might have been a bit younger, may not have been. So my first introduction to fanfiction was accidentally through the Sims 2 exchange. So you could lots of people would, create a Sims album and a lot of people would edit their pictures and stuff and create stories and write them to that. So it was really cool and unique at the time. And then later on I found fanfiction.net and Fiction Press. Now most of my fanfiction stuff actually came from Twilight. I did a lot of Twilight fanfiction for a long time there. But yeah, so I guess that's where I'm coming from when it comes to this. Now, when I think of fanfiction, I go off into different branches of fanfiction. So you have your classic fanfiction, which I guess is what a lot of people also think of, where someone will take the characters from the book exactly as they are and they will continue the story or write the story differently, maybe insert themselves in the story or something like that. One thing that did become popular was characters reacting to the books, and I guess that's in that area. So I guess that type of fanfiction I wouldn't classify as literature, or kind of classify it as a parody, really. To me it's more like something that people do when they're learning to write or when they're kind of just getting in the mood for it. I have my heart for fanfiction because to me it really lets people start creating in the writing realm without having to character build or anything. So that's where I put that one. Kind of like parody. I wouldn't consider it its own literature, I wouldn't have a book published on it or read a book published on it, but I'd read it on the internet apparently. The next one I think of is when they take the characters with the same attributes or characteristics and either throw them into different worlds, different situations, or the story never happened. So that, I guess if we're going writing wise, I think I'd put middle grade sort of classification, but I don't really know if I'd classify it as literature. To me, 50 Shades of Grey feels like that kind of area of fanfiction where they just pretty much just pluck the characters out of where they are and use them in a different way. It makes sense, but once again, I wouldn't publish a book about something like that. My favourite form of fanfiction, which is the one that I classify more as a literature in its own thing, is when people might take the character, maybe their relationships or just the characters' names, and they write them in their own world and they use segments from the story for different things, and the characters in the story maybe some relationships, but they don't really use much. They take the core character and then they change them. So this fanfiction is kind of on the line of, is it fanfiction or is it just internet fiction? Internet fiction is not quite a book, but not, not fanfiction. They create their own world, it just hasn't been published. But yeah, so that fanfiction is what I would say is literature, when someone does take segments from the story, rewrite it in their own voice, in their own story, in their own world. That is also my favourite type, as I said. I moved from that fanfiction to Wattpad, and around that time I started reading a lot more books and really opening up my book collection, so I had to buy more bookcases and I have to reorganise again. The way I look at it is, if it's really far away from the story and they're creating their own characters and stuff, that's what I would classify as fiction. Whereas if they just pluck the characters out, that's what I more classify as an activity or practice writing. Or helping someone fall in love with the art of writing, whereas the more advanced stages, I'm like, you are about, like, you're using the character's name, and I did see this with a lot of them. It's still have the character's name, and then all of a sudden you'd find them on another website, Fiction Press or Wattpad, and they would have made their own story without those characters' names, or they would have rewritten the story, which is always my favourite. I know that I read a few of them that like started as a Twilight fanfiction in that higher way and have been turned into books and things like that, which, as I said, don't feel like 50 Shades of Grey was. I feel like that was the one below. I also just have a thing against 50 Shades of Grey. My favourite fanfictions that was turned into the book, I think it was like, I forget the name of the actual fanfiction, but the name of the book is Sempre or Sempre Forever. I'll try and find a link for it and put it down below. But that one really went around like slaves and slavery in the modern day times and the mafia. So I did like that. I've read the actual book, which I love. I love it more than I love the fanfiction, and I love that fanfiction. Check that out. I need to buy the physical copy of it because I only have the ebook copy. I need to buy a few physical copies of things at the moment. Yeah, so they're kind of my views on fanfiction. What are your guys' view? How do you feel about fanfiction or anything to do with fanfiction? Yeah, I hope you guys are having a lovely week, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Messy, and my desk turns into chaos real easily. Like, I will clean my desk and then half an hour later it's just chaos. So, unless I'm just filming